Howdy folks, Little John, and we're out in the brewery. I'm just in the middle of, not in the middle, but in the start of just putting on a new brew, and while I'm at it, I thought I might as well run through with an idea and a concept that was actually thrown to me by Birdie Bro, so cheers mate, on the last 5 on Friday video where I was discussing, you know, planning your next brews, you know, and he was talking about, you know, having some videos going through the actual process of designing a brew from, you know, from the grain and stuff you got on hand, and right through the whole process, right through to actually, you know, drinking that beer. That sounds like a good idea to me. We do all these videos bit by bit and here and there chopping, you know, but never done a whole flow through. So I thought, why not? Let's give it a crack. Now, designing the recipe is something when we talk about, you know, what to do with your brew. Well, they've actually sat down and then gone through the process of working out the actual brew itself, what's going to go into it, and yeah, and why. So here's an opportunity, so let's do it. And I'm on the coffee. It's nice and early on Australia Day holiday Monday. Let me get this brew out of the way. So, the first thing I'm looking at when I'm doing a brew, obviously you're working out what it is that you want to do. Now, that will come from 2 different angles. One, you're looking at the kind of beer that you want to brew, and this was discussed on the 5 on Friday. But also you're also looking at, you know, what you have available ingredient wise. Now, if you're just bringing in ingredients as you need them, we're going to the local brew shop, you've got that luxury and you're just buying as you need, then you're not too worried about working off what you've got on hand. If you're a bit more like myself, where the homebrew shop isn't quite so easy, or you buy a bit more in bulk, then you tend to work off what you've got at home. So it's not a bad idea to, you know, a lot of brewers will keep a record, you know, an inventory of what they've got on hand, so they can sit down and look at that and work out what they're doing with the brew. You need the Robo Brew kicking in there as it's quite on. Yeah, it's going through just a little rest before we recirculate. But if you've got a list, or if you're actually physically going to sit down and look at what you've got, it doesn't really matter. As long as you've got what you're there in front of you, you can work through your brew. Now, and if anyone who watches videos, quite often there'll be a grain change on brew day. I'm going, oh, I was going to use a particular malt, and I'll change to a different one. And that's because I've got a bloody bad habit of just running off the top of my head and just working off, remembering what I've got on hand, and sort of things I normally do have, which can cause me some bit issue here and there. I'm changing things on the fly. But particularly if you're running software like Beersmith, a lot of they've got inventories in it, and you can keep a track of what you're using, so you know exactly what's there when you are designing your recipe and putting your bits and pieces together. Doesn't matter how you do it, but you know, it's always a good idea to have a check of what you've got before you sit down and work out how you're going to throw your recipe together. Now, I'm going to run through, as I said, I'm making a golden ale. English Best Bitter Pale Ale. Golden Ale is not an actual, it's not a listed style. It's a sort of a hybrid of, it's thrown together with that English, you know, Best Bitter Pale Ale sort of style. And coming from that Friday video, and was looking at this, the video as sort of as a beer I brewed around this time of the year, leading into like at the end of summer, leading into autumn and coming into winter. That's a brew with a little bit more malt focus, with some hop character, but it's not hoppy. It's got a little bit more depth and a little bit more body. So it's a nice beer for leading into the colder months. Yeah. But not jumping into your stouts and porters and things like that. So first step is working out ideally what kind of beer it is you're looking to make, and then looking at your ingredients and going, okay, how am I going to make that work? Now there's a bunch of steps that you need to sort of work through when you are doing your, designing your recipe. And there can be different ways of going about it, but this is the process that I go through. And so basically, work out the style. What kind of beer do I want to brew? Because obviously that's going to dictate everything going forward. So you need to know. It's simple. You need to know what it is you're trying to brew. So from there, I go, okay, this is the kind of beer I want to brew. How do I want that beer to look, taste and feel? What is my flavour balance going to be on this beer? So I'm looking. It's a beer, like I said, beer I do regularly, and I know sort of how I like it. I did last year's batch, which is on video, River of Gold. I'll put a card up. You can link to the original video on that one. It was a really good beer. I was really happy with it. I liked what I got out of that brew. So this year I've taken that brew, pulled it back a little bit. It was maltier than I wanted. It was more on the brownie side than golden. So I'm going to pull it back a little bit. So first thing I did, so as say with any beer, look at the grain bill. First step obviously is your base, and again, knowing what that final outcome wants to be, where you want to be, what you want to get is really important in working that grain mix out. So start with your base. Now, and that's like anything, your Pilsner malts, Pale Ale malt, your Marisol, Golden Promise, up into your Viennas and even into your Munichs. I mean, they're your base malts. Okay, and that's where the bulk of your beer is going to come from. So, starting from there, and you're looking there at how much you're pushing the additional flavours with specialties and allowing room for those. Now, a normal brew is going to run 60 to 90, 95% base malt, even up to 100% for, say, for a very light Pilsner. And again, when you're doing this sort of thing, it's not a bad idea. Have a bit of a look at online. Have a look at the guidelines, the AABC, the actual numbers and the guidelines and the explanation of what that brew is from a judging point of view. So what the style looks like, what it should be. Have a look at a few recipes and get an idea of what other people are doing and see how that works. And then from your base, then you can work on your specialties. And again, looking depending on what it is you're looking to achieve. So finding a good resource online for a bit of information on the grains and what each sort of grain will bring is really good. A really good simple resource I found when I very first started going playing with grains was Craft Brewer in Brisbane. their website actually had quite a nice amount of detail on what the grains bring and their flavours and stuff. And I use that quite a lot to work out how it's going to work in the grains. Now there's plenty of other resources and you can find them. You know, it's certainly not the only place you're going to do it. But I said it worked well for me. And initially I was ordering my stuff through Craft Brewer. It was the first place I ever ordered anything other than, yeah, beyond just a simple kit that I could buy at Big W. So that's been a good resource, and you can get something like that and getting an understanding and seeing what those grains are going to do going in initially. Alright, so we've just got the mash recirculating. Timer again. So, as I said, with the grain, so you take get your base malt, work out what your base malt is. Now, everyone has their own preferences, and it will depend. Sometimes it comes down to money. There's a reasonable cash price difference between like a good malt out of England or you know, German, like a Wehrmann or a Simpsons. It's a lot cheaper if you're buying like a Joe White or a Barrett Burston here locally. At the end of the day, it doesn't matter. Whatever, I mean, if you're using a grain and you're liking the flavour you're getting from it, then go for it. So start with your base, work out what your base is, and again, this is where your software is really good. Put in your software, and then work out what your specialties are, and where you want to push your flavour profile, because that's where a lot of your bulk of your flavour is going to come from, those specialties. So in this brew, as an example, I said I want a good amount of maltiness in this brew. I want a little bit of depth. I don't particularly want a lot of extra flavours. This brew last year had chocolate malt and some special, a little pale, and they have wheat and caramel. And I think I ended up with too much going on for the style I was after. So I'm pulling it back this year. But so what I want to do, the one I'm going to run with is then the specialty malts. You're looking through those and going, okay, am I looking for just a little bit of sweetness, a little bit of caramel? Do I want, do I want some coffee? Do I want toffee notes? Do I want chocolate? Do I want some astringent bite? Do I want some roastiness? You've got to look at those things, and that's again where I said, going back and having a look through these lists and these, where I can tell you what sort of things you're going to get, and you can work out what you need. Now, with your specialty malts, the darker they are, the more intense their flavour is going to be, so the less of it you need to use. So you're starting off right down with your Carapils, which is lighter in colour than a lot of base malts, and it's high, it's dextrinous, and it's good for pilsners and light, like blonde ales and stuff, where you haven't got a lot of other malt to create the enzymes that you need really for creating nice like head and a little bit of body. So you'll quite often see you'll use Carapils in those light bodied beers, and then you'll work your way through your light crystals, your pale crystal, you'll see you have your Caras, which is just a style, it's not a particular thing, and you'll run through like your Larium, your Carahel, Caramalt, and you'll run through into your Cara Roma, Cara Belge, Cara Bohemian, and again, each one of these will impart different flavours, similar flavours but different, and in much bigger ways. Again, as I said, depending on that how dark it is. So work through, if you're looking for a certain flavour, find that flavour in your listings and go and then work with that. And that's where keeping your notes and your records is always really important. Keep a good track of what you're using and take notes on your tasting. So when you finish that brew, you can go and you can evaluate, you can look at it and go, okay, well this worked, that done, this flavour's too much, this flavour's not enough or whatever, and you can make adjustments. And again, if you want to go back and watch the video on brew keeping, I'll go in more depth about about doing that and the reasons for it and what you can, how you can use that. But so with those grains, so got your base, then add to it. So this brew, I've gone for, I think it was 70% Golden Promise as the base, 25% Munich. And so again, Munich's base malt. It's the darkest of your base malts. Technically, yeah, I'm using Munich 1. There is a Munich 2, which is darker. The Munich grain is quite often used in box, to some degree in festival beers. Its base is it's much more intense. It's got a lot more malt body. I use it a bit, like in smaller quantities in beers, just to up that malt. But in this brew, I'm hoping it's going to give me really what I want. So effectively, I've got 95% base malt in this beer. Not a lot of specialties at all. And especially, all I'm going with this batch is Cara Munich 2, 5%. So it's not a lot. But it'll do the job nicely. I think it's going to get me what I want. Now again, when you're using these brews, when you're using your software and you're putting your ingredients in, it will give you an expected, like it'll show you an expected a colour, what the beer's roughly going to look like colour-wise. So that can be, you can use that as a guide when you're playing around with your specialties. Because obviously, if you're after a pale ale and it's coming in and it looks brown, then you've got something wrong. You've got to, if you're not within the colour range, you're certainly not going to be in the flavour range for that style of beer. So that's a really handy tool to use, is that colour chart. So this one's coming in at, it's about 18 EBC. It's a deep gold. Last year's batch ran around 23, 24, and it was, like I said, it was pushing brown. It wasn't gold. It was definitely into the brown sort of category. There are charts you can get online which will actually show you right through the whole list of actual colours. But there's no need to go in that sort of thing. I used to, when I first started really getting into the playing around with extra brews, I'd actually measure. I'd use the chart and actually measure the colours. But that was before I was using software properly. So you don't need to. You got the software. You can just bung it in there. It'll tell you what your expected colour is going to get. And as long as your efficiency is within the range of what you're telling your software it's going to be, then you'll get pretty close to that colour. The software's it's pretty good. I have got BeerSmith. I do play with it. I generally use Brewmate simply because it's just so easy. It's not always as simple. It's not always easy to find. And now with the propensity for people to be doing late boil hops, post boil hops, whirlpool, dry hopping, BeerSmith does have calculations. The latest version of BeerSmith has calculations, and it will actually work out the IBU effect that you will get from those additions with your hops. The Brewmate won't do. So it is limited from that point. And it is an older program, and it was quite, it wasn't as great detail. But it doesn't matter whatever you're using, get comfortable with it and use it. So you've got your grain bill. You've worked out what you're going to do. And of course, the amount of grain you use is based off the size of batch you want to make in your efficiencies. And again, that's all stuff you need to work out into your system and work out how your system works. That's record keeping and adjusting as you go. If you're just starting out, I'd suggest working somewhere around 65% efficiency in your calculations, and then adjusting as you go forward. Most software defaults to 70, and I find, particularly when you're starting out, 70 can be difficult to achieve. Plenty of brewers do, plenty of brewers go above it. But if you start a bit lower, you're not gonna suddenly fall short come brew day. You're not gonna fall 5 or 6 gravity points short of what your target is. You may go over, which isn't a problem. You can just water back a little bit. Never hurts to have extra beer, but it's a disappointment when you're aiming for a 1040, 1044 gravity and you get 1038, and then you chase numbers, or you end up with a mid-strength beer that you didn't want. Anyway, so grain bill's done. Next thing we need to look at is the hops. And again, there's a lot of flavour coming from the hop, and you need to work out the beer you're brewing, and back again back to that flavour, that balance and profile. How that's going to run. What hops do you need? When do you need to put them in? And what quantities do you need? So again, going to forums and stuff, and getting on the net, looking at the style, and get an idea of the kind of hops that are traditionally used in those sort of styles. And then looking at recipes, and looking at what other people are using, and how they're using their hops, and how people then are describing the resultant beer, and use that to some degree to work out how you're going to get to where you want to be. Again, there's a video on hops, how to use them, when to use them, how they work. So I'm not going to go. We're not going to go into that detail. But when it comes to actually creating the recipe, then you need to look at, okay, you need to know what sort of bitterness level you want to achieve with your brew, and how you want to get there. Do you want upfront bitterness with a little bit of flavour coming on the end? Do you want, you want to be a bit more gentle up front, but really bring on that hop flavour towards the end? You've got to know what it is you're trying to achieve, so you can use these, use your hops the right way. There are so many variables and ways you can get different effects from your hops just by simply changing the way you use them. So you need to be understanding what it is they're going to add to your brew. Now again, going back, Craft Brew again, it was a great resource, and there's again plenty of other resources. Look at your hops, get your flavour descriptions. There's plenty of info there. Most of the hop growers and the hop providers will have good information about different hops. So look at them, work out the hops that are going to get you the flavours and things that you want. Do you want tropical fruits? Do you want stone fruit? Do you want, resiny? Do you want danky, dirty sort of flavours? It's all going to depend on what hop you want to use. So work out your hops and how you're going to use them. So working out your so starting off with your bittering addition, and knowing what that wants to do, so you can work out where you're going. Now, if you're just wanting, something that's going to give you that initial bitter hit, then you're going to be looking for a 60-minute addition, and you want probably something clean. And there's lots of hops that will give you a nice clean bitterness, and again depends on the actual brew you're doing, on what might work best. Warrior, Target, Magnum, all three fairly clean and neutral when used as a bittering hop. If you've got getting them up over 45 minutes in the boil, they really don't contribute any flavour. Super Alpha, or what they now call Dr. Rudy, brilliant bittering hop. Very clean when used, again, when used at 60 minutes. And work out what you want to do, how many IBUs you need to get from that. And again, that's where going to the style guides can be good to go get an idea of what your IBU should be for a certain brew. And again, your own experience and tasting, and will allows you to go, okay, well, I've tried this pale ale, I liked it, I know it's got 35 IBU in it, so you can go, okay, well that's a level I sort of like. So you can work with that. So build some base IBUs. Now, I, as a general rule, try to push somewhere between 18 and 28 IBUs on initial bittering addition, and that will be obviously the higher it is, the darker and richer the beer is. The lighter a beer is, obviously the less IBU we can carry and the less you need to get that noticeable bitter hit. But again, that's a personal thing. As an example, this beer today, I think we'll just leave that for a second. So you get your bittering hops, and then you're working out your additions from there. Do you want your flavour? Do you want aroma? Do you want that from a late boil? Do you want it from a whirlpool hop or a dry hop? Now, again, this is not something someone can tell you is going to work for you. You need to work these things out. So again, like if you're working off a recipe, going off things that someone's put out there, then use that and then adjust it and record. But I suggest if you're first getting into doing your own recipes and stuff, you're not really sure where you're going, start off with, keep it simple, the bittering addition, a late addition, and by late additions we're talking 5 to 15 minutes left in the boil, and and maybe an aroma addition, like a very late flame out addition, right at the end of the boil. Get an idea where that combination works for you, and then work on adjusting that, and then adding things like your whirlpool hops or a dry hop in the ferment. Seen a lot of brewers now. I mean, dry hopping's all the rage at the moment, and people are just dry hopping the crap out of everything. I'm really pretty well. I'm not sick of it, but I hate seeing a relatively new brewer, and they're brewing a lager and they're asking, when do I dry hop? It just screams out craziness, because that's not a style you dry hop. But everyone thinks that's just the way it is. Everyone just thinks you've got to dry hop everything. I've had this issue for a while. I mean, and I'm not against dry hopping. I'm against the wholesale crazy use of it, because it's just ridiculous, and dry hopping costs brewers a lot of money. It's the most expensive part of a brew is the amount of hops you need to dry hop. So if you're not particularly in need of a specific flavour that only dry hop's going to give you, I suggest avoiding it, or just being very careful with it, because you can increase the cost of your single brew quite significantly by dry hopping. It's like everything with your brew. Be aware of what it is bringing and whether it is a worthwhile addition. So go through and work out what it is you want. So this brew, as I'm going for a nice malt presence, I want some hop character. I don't want I don't want to be hop driven, but I want some nice supporting hop and a little bit of lingering, just a little bit on the end there to keep it going. And last year's batch was a little light on that. It was very malt focused. So, and I think last year was around 32 IBU. So this year I've well, might have been 30. Sorry, about 36. I've knocked this one up to about 44. So what I'm doing, Topaz as my bittering hop. Now I'm dropping that from a 60-minute edition back to 40 minutes. And the reason being that 40 minutes is still going to... Topaz, if you've never used it, it's an Aussie hop. It's a bloody beautiful hop. It's really good. It doesn't get used as much as it should. I guess overlooked a bit, but it is just a really nice hop. It's got nice earthiness, it's got a little bit of spice, it's got just a tiny little bit of fruit in it. It's almost like a Pride of Ringwood with a little bit more modernity. It's got a little bit just a little bit extra interest in it that the Pride of Ringwood doesn't. It doesn't have just a straight up bang dirty earth. It's got earth, but it's a little bit more. It's a bit more floral. It's got a little bit more interest in it. So at 40 minutes, I think I'm still going to get a good whack of that flavour. It carries flavour right through a 60-minute edition, but not as much. But I think at 40 minutes it's going to work really nicely. And there's not a huge amount of IBU. By memory, I think it was about 22. This program doesn't actually print the individual IBUs. Then I'm going to go for a nice hit of Centennial at 10 minutes. About 2 grams a litre, a bit under 2 grams a litre. And I think off the top of my head it was somewhere around 15 IBUs. So it's a decent contribution, and it should be just give that nice, easy, fruity sort of flavour without, Centennial's not giving you those tropical, bursty flavours that some of the modern hops do. It's subdued, and it's really nice. I think that'll work really nicely. And then at 5 minutes I'm going to drop in a bit of Mosaic, just under a gram a litre, which again I think top of my head about 6 IBUs. So again it's be just noticeable on the end there, and that will give a little bit more of the brighter fruits. I didn't use Mosaic in the last version. I used Simcoe on the end, which kept the danky level there a little bit, so I want to push away from that and actually brighten it up a little bit this year. So I think that Mosaic will work really well. And that's it. Nothing after that. I'm not putting any flame out additions or any dry hop on this one. It's about the malt and the hops there just to back it up. And this I'm saying about understanding your hop profile and what it is you're trying to do. If I go ahead and put dry hop on this beer, I've lost the hop, I've lost the malt profile, and I've lost the whole point of the beer, and I've just really wasted what I'm trying to do. And this is what people are doing with all this dry hopping. You're hiding the beer that you're making behind a whole bunch of, I'm going to say it, grassy fucking mess. Like I said, if you want to dry hop, but understand what it is you're doing. Make your base beer. Get to know the beers underneath, and then see whether you can complement that with a dry hop. Don't just dry hop the crap out of shit because everyone says you should do it. Too many beers, to me, taste the freaking same because they're all dry hopped. Out of 2 boxes of Christmas Advent calendars, mixed beers before Christmas, there's a whole lot of IPA and session, XPAs and all that sort of stuff, and pale ale. But so many of them beers really tasted the same because they're all dry hopped. And you read them, and they've got different hops in them. They're using different hops in the brew, but because they're just savagely dry hopped, they really all just taste the same. It's the same thing over and over and over again. It's just this, liquidy, grassy mess of fucking hop shit. Don't take that the wrong way. I mean, dry hopping, it has its place. You just got to use it properly. Just be aware of what it is when you are using it. Anyway, so you got your grain, you got your hops. You need to work out how you're gonna achieve that. So, like I said, your grain, work out your mash. When you're starting off, stick with simple mashes. Modified, all the malts nowadays are modified. You don't need to do elaborate step mashes. I do them because I'm looking to achieve certain things by doing that. Stage mash, simple. Mash in 65, mash for an hour. I'll raise it to a 72 for mash out and do a simple sparge. You don't need to do crazy stuff. But the main thing is just note that mash temperature, what it's going to do. Your low mash temperature, the lower end, high fermentable, lower body, higher end, more body, less fermentables, more sugars, less sweeter beer. 60 to 70 basically is the range of temperatures that you need to mash in. And to some degree it's the same with everything else. Lower end of your lighter beer, of your pilsners, and as you work through the heavier beers and the darker beers, you work up through the temperature. But you can mash any beer at 65 degrees and you'll get a good result. Okay, you push either side from that to get slightly different results. Again, record keeping, own taste, and work out what your preferences are. And again, going off other information that people will give you as well. So you've got your grain, you've got your hops, you've worked out your mash schedule, you know what you're doing. Brew day is pretty much done. Final piece of the puzzle, and for me, is yeast selection. Now, some people will tell you that yeast is the first thing you pick because you can only make a certain amount of beers off the yeast you've got. Now, that's fine. If you go to the fridge and you've only got one yeast, then you're restricted to beers that are going to work with that yeast. If you've got more yeast available, then you've got more options available to you. There's plenty of brewers that are just throwing everything out with US-05, so the yeast is not a consideration for that sort of brewer. If you've got you might have a selection in the fridge. You might have a couple of dry packs, you might have a pommy yeast, you might have an American 05, or you might have a European sort of a yeast sitting there ready to go. Or like myself, you might have a bit of a yeast bank where you've got a bit more variety. I don't worry about my yeast because I know I've got the beer and I'll find a yeast that's going to work with it. If you're planning a bit further ahead and you need to order a yeast in, then work it that way and order it, which is what I used to do. I'd work out my beer and then we'll go, okay, what yeast do I want, and then I'd order my yeast in, basically, exactly for what I wanted. So having the yeast bank means I don't have that problem. I can just go, okay, as long as I know a couple of days before I've got a starter on. I've got a starter sitting there today. Today's brew, it's an SO4. Just standard, pommy sort of yeast. It'll do what I want it to do. I had it sitting there in the yeast bank, so I've got a starter on yesterday, and it'll be good to go to pitch tonight when this brew's ready to go. So, but yeast, again, if you're sticking with the simple stuff you've got at home and you're not worried about it, but if you are looking for a little bit more creativity in your brews, then look into your yeast. Yeast is a good way of doing it. You're going to get different flavours out of different yeast depending on what yeast you use. You can push some esters, and some will give you more focus, will allow the malt to come through more. Some will allow hops to come through more. So again, just a little bit of reading on the information on the yeast to see what results you will get. If you've always just used dry yeast, look at stepping into into liquid yeast. They are more expensive to buy, and you generally do need to make a starter. But it's not difficult. Check out the videos for making starters and things. It's not hard to do. And the variety and options you have available to you are so much bigger. Yeah, and you'll get quite different results. And there's, you know, I've done the comparisons with certain yeast, and the difference from one yeast to another can be quite considerable on your finished beer. So don't be afraid to sort of experiment a little bit, push it a little bit. I mean, don't go crazy, you know. But again, having an understanding and reading what's there and what each yeast is going to do, and trying something different. Try different yeast on a beer that you brew regularly, so something where you are going to sort of understand the difference and see it. Or, you know, if you've got the option, if you've got the availability, do a split batch. Do half with one, do half with another. Great way to see the differences that you get, and, you know, bring some diversity, a little bit more variety into your brewing. But once you've chosen that yeast, then you've got to work out what temperature you want to brew that yeast at. I mean, every yeast has its ideal temperature, and then have got a range that will work in. And again, with a little bit of research, you can find, you know, the difference that those yeasts will do when they're working in a range. Just as a simple example, US-05. It's generally recommended to brew it at around 18-20 degrees, and it brews relatively clean. Will emphasise a little bit on hop character, not a massive amount, but pretty much lets the beer do its own thing. But if you drop that yeast 05 down to 15 degrees, it slows its ferment down a little bit, and it will ferment a lot cleaner, so you can knock out fake lagers and, you know, blonde ales and things like that that are really reasonably clean and really lets everything just stand up. But then if you push that 05 into the 21-22 degree mark, it will really lift the fruit flavours. It will throw its own estery flavours, and you can start picking up a little bit of, you know, a little bit of fruit. You can get when I've many times had, like, when I was first back going to the kits and brewing on the bench in the garage here, you know, you'd pick up banana, particularly banana, when you push that temperature a little bit, yeah, and depending on what you're brewing, it can be a flavour you're after. And every yeast is the same; they will be different. Generally, the lower end of the temperature range, they'll be cleaner and they'll be less of the character, and the higher you go into the temperature range, the more character they will impart. So again, understanding that yeast, what it can do and what you want it to do, is really important. So again, it's record keeping a track of what you're doing. If you are using the same yeast all the time, try it at different temperatures. If you've got temperature control, try it at different temperatures for 3 batches in a row. Do one lower, one mid-range, and do one a little bit higher. Then compare the 3 beers. You might just find that you've been using US-05 at 18 degrees because that's what everyone says to, but you might prefer it at 20. You might rather take an extra 4 days to brew your batch and do it at 16. Again, that all depends, but that's something to look at. So at that point, you've got your grain, you've got your hops, you've got your yeast, you've got your beer. Your beer's done. All you got left to do is put the bloody thing together, mash it, ferment it, and get it in bottles and drink it. There is a step of working at, you know, how you want to prime and stuff, but these things have far less impact on your beer, and aren't such. I mean, that's a bit less of a variable. We'll go for that maybe a little bit when we actually get into the bottling phase of this one. But that's it. That's designing your recipe, the step by step. That sounds a bit daunting, and it freaks people out, and they get scared to do it. And this is why a lot of brewers just go off other people's recipes, and that's not a bad thing, because people have tried recipes, they work. But for me, a big part of brewing, and particularly if you're doing grain, or even kits and mashing and doing some steeping, is that you're creating your own beer, It's your own creation. You've designed it. You've put everything in yourself. You've made it. It's yours. It's not somebody else's. It's not a fucking white winged chocolate cake. It's, you know, it's your brew from scratch. You can tell people, I made that. Everything in that I made. I designed it. I picked everything. So go with that process if you want. Don't be afraid to do it. Get in there, have a go. Keep your records and adjust as you go. Okay, so I said this will be the first video. I'm not at the same time now. I've got the actual mash on. I will continue to do that, and that will be the second video. We'll run through just the normal mash process, but I'm going to follow this brew through. Then I will do a more detailed follow through on the actual fermentation. So we'll, I think from that we'll look at the actual temperatures and the days, and when I make adjustments, right up to bottling day. And we'll bottle, and down the track we'll do a taste on this this golden ale, the end of the summer ale, because basically being it's end of January now, it's going to be another month before this is in the bottle. Another month before it's drinking anyway. It'll be in the bottle in a couple of weeks, but it'll be the end of the month, end of summer before it's drinking, hence the name. So that's where we go. If you've got any questions or any comments on this brew and the process, go ahead, ask. Anything you want clarified, yeah, like I said, stick it down there, no problem at all. So that's me. That's part one of designing and brewing your own beer. So I'll see you in the next video where we finish actually mashing this one up and getting it brewed. So until I see you then, good brewing.